Hello and welcome to today's presentation. Today we are going to look at a mech that you've probably never really seen, which is the Shogun. Last week we got a few mechs come in to the shop that are in that almost extinct or extinct kind of situation. Mechs that didn't survive the various battles and the various wars the Inner Sphere and the clan space has had to offer, and the Shogun is one of them. Is it a bad mech? Not really. It does what it's supposed to do. It has a few different capabilities. It is half decent. It's one of those things that were never produced in large amounts, that wasn't in production in the Inner Sphere for the longest time, and wasn't really in production in clan space either. So it's a bit of an odd machine, probably one that you haven't heard of a whole lot, but we're going to go through and look at its capabilities and see if it's worth buying. The Shogun is one of the mechs that returned to the Inner Sphere when Wolf's Dragoon showed up as a mercenary unit, as a scout unit for the clans to try to figure out how the Inner Sphere was doing. In 3005, it was one of the biggest jumping mechs on the market. You still had a few islanders around. You had a few different things floating around, but really a lot of those fancier jumping mechs were not really available anymore for a variety of reasons, mainly that a lot of those bigger jumping mechs add more advanced technology in them in order to save some weight to get those jump jets on. Nobody had really seen the Shogun since the first Succession War, but a lot of targeting computers still recognized it since the hardware and the software updates hadn't been the same ever since the Succession War began. And it wasn't like the Imp, which was actually a clan mech originally, and not one that the Dragoons showed up with for some reason and probably should never have brought. A lot of people had questions about it, but like a lot of things with the Wolf's Dragoon, you had questions about it, but since you could pay them to fight for you, and they were really, really good at fighting, you only asked the question and never expected an answer. So let's look at the original Shogun, the one that came out right as the Amherst Civil War was going on, and the SLDF contracted Mitchell's vehicle on Graham 4 to build them a replacement for the Stalker. Stalker was fairly popular, but the problem with the machine is that the body kit and structure of it always has been causing issues. So replacing it with a machine that's maybe a little bit more straightforward might not have been a bad idea. The resulting design is the SHG-2H, the original Shogun. It uses the same engine as the Stalker, a Strand 255, an odd engine, obviously. It's a weird weight range and a weird engine to source, basically. But it could give the Shogun a speed of about 55 kilometers per hour in a straight line. And it was protected by ferrofibrous armor, and it had case to protect the ammo. Very decent overall at that point. For weapons, you actually had a pair of Artemis 4 enhanced 15 rack LRM, so you get pretty decent accuracy on the grouping of the missiles, and you get a better punch at that kind of range than the standard Stalker, let's say. You had 4 2-tube Streak SRM launchers, gives you a decent accuracy and can allow you to control like how many missiles you want to shoot. And to back that up, you add a medium pulse laser and a regular medium laser. As the Civil War was going on and SLDF was fighting in cities quite a bit, it was requested that it could jump. So it could jump 90 meters using 3 jump jets, which was quite advantageous in that particular era where it was really required to be able to be mobile in tight spaces. Mitchell's managed to make about 8 production run of the Shogun before Operation Exodus took most of them out of the Inner Sphere. The SLDF kind of liked it, so they did grab as many as they could, and they had been the only people really buying them since they were the one that requested it. Soon after, the factories on Graham 4 were leveled during the first Succession War, so the design was kind of forgotten at that point. Even the clans had limited access to the model. They never made a whole lot of new ones, let's say. Most of them were mothballed, and after Operation Klondike, were not really being used. I kind of find it surprising that the Dragoons decided to take the Shogun with them for their scouting mission. It might have just been a case of, well, we've got a whole lot of them. We don't know what to do with them. Here, Jamie, have fun. Grab those Shoguns and try to make them work. And the Shogun, as it came back, became what we say in French is un paquet trouble. Nobody really liked it. All the parts on it are proprietary or linked to proprietary designs and linkage. The Dragoons never got a deal to get Mitchell Vehicle to restart production of the darn thing. They probably would have required to rebuild an entire factory, and even though the Wolves were getting a decent amount of cash doing their mission, it wasn't enough to give an incentive to Mitchell Vehicle to restart the production line on that particular machine. During the Succession War, the Dragoons used a design called the SHG-2E, which was meant to be a very simple Succession War era kind of design. Cooled by 17 heat sinks and protected by 15.5 tons of standard armor, 1 ton more than your Orion as an example, so it's pretty decent. And for weapons, you have a pair of Coventry Starfire 15 rack LRMs and a Magna L-Star PPC. While those are fairly standard weapons, the problem is the linkage on them is really weird, and you can't get some of the parts easily without manufacturing them. The original ERPPC that was set on that shoulder was a bit too advanced for the Succession War, so it took a little bit for the Dragoons to start using an ERPPC again with the SHG-2F, which became available past 3029 when the ERPPC became, let's say, more common. For close support, you have a pair of 6-tube SRMs, which are pretty good at hunting light vehicles, taking care of some light threats, and crit seeking once the enemy armor is completely messed up. One of the issues with the Shogun is that it was mainly put in the Zeta Batallion of the Wolf's Dragoon, which is the group of people who were the craziest and always at the forefront of every assault. By the end of 3055, there were about 5 Shoguns left in all of the Inner Sphere. Before we go forward, we're going to discuss the thing that actually came into the Inner Sphere right as the Dragoons walked Shogun in. The machine that they were actually given were a lot of Shogun Cs, which is a fully clan-equipped Shogun. Of course, when the Dragoons showed up with these kinds of machine, it was really way too good for whatever the Inner Sphere was fighting with, so they had to modify and downgrade them to those standards we were talking about earlier. The Shogun C is actually a rather threatening machine. Uses a pair of Artemis 4 enhanced 20 rack LRMs, and it's the good ones, the clan ones without any minimum range, so you can use them to punch people in the face with 20 missiles. A clan ERPPC with about 50% more damage potential, and a set of 4 Streak 6-tube SRMs, which is a whole lot of SRMs. Being given these machines, the Dragoons would be very, very happy to use them. Once again, the problem is that they couldn't source most of those clan parts in the Inner Sphere, and getting those captured would have looked really, really bad. So they did have to downgrade a whole lot of them. Were the Homeworld producing more Shogun Cs at that point? No, all the Shoguns that were upgraded to this particular level of design were all older Shoguns being refit with new equipment. If there would been a new Shogun, it would probably been a Shogun 2C or something along those lines, which would have been too different from the standard that we see here. As things went on, the Shogun was basically completely extinct until Clan Seafox decided to put some money down and started production of about 3 different models, 2 for clan use and 1 for Inner Sphere export. Clan Seafox needed a pretty big influx of money, so new mechs like the Shoguns was a decent thing to do, especially since the patent on them had pretty much expired and they could do whatever they wanted with it. The first of those new models, the Shogun C2, which is basically a Shogun C with the armor swapped out for ferrolamellar. It's a testbed for the technology. It wasn't sold in huge amounts, but you might be able to see a few of them run around, and they're all fairly recent, so it might be actually a better thing than some of those old refitted Shogun Cs. We have heard of the Shogun SHG3E, which is built to Intersphere standard using case 2 to protect the ammo, but that's about all the details we have from it. I never saw one. Even our Clan Seafox contacts that come around here all the time never saw any. I asked Clan Snowraven if they had seen any. They said no. Even our Intersphere contacts in the Free Worlds League, in the Torian Concordat, or Federated Suns have never seen any. I really think at this point that the Inner Sphere version of the Shogun is probably extinct and that nobody is really buying that 3E model. The newest variant is the Shogun C3, and it's brand new from Clan Seafox, and even though it has C3 in the name, it doesn't have a C3 computer. The first thing is that it uses a clan grade 340 XL engine instead of the old Strand 255, and it can go now 64 kilometers per hour and jump 120 meters. That makes it a little bit more comparable to your Warhawk or your Battlemaster as a fast assault mech in a way. You take 13 tons of the good clan ferrofibrous armor and 17 clan double heat sinks, so you run cool and you're really well protected. And all your ammo bins are protected with case 2, so if an accident happens, it blows out the back rather than blowing towards the inside of your mech, which is a very, very nice thing and does protect that XL engine a whole lot more. For weapons, you might think it's a little bit limited. While we looked at the Shogun C before, but this one here has a pair of Artemis 5 enhanced 15 rack LRM, so you get both better grouping and better targeting accuracy on the launcher. And the body launchers, those SRM6, are actually replaced with ATM6, so you get a variety of potential range and rounds with 3 tons of the ammo. I've heard and seen people use more of the short range ammos on it and not any of the extended range ones, since you have those LRM-15 to back you up. The RPPC is still on there, but it is also linked to a PPC capacitor, so you can turn up the heat to actually have a massive punch at a long range. It's a very decent machine. With the lack of minimum range on most of those weapons now, you can fight at any range. It's well defended. Overall, a very good machine. And if you're a clan warrior, we'll talk about the Warhawk in another presentation, but that's probably the 85-ton mech of choice if you're trying to rebuild a Tomon, basically. In the end, the Shogun is a design that keeps getting extinct and coming back. Will the Seafox new model be a hit like Mitchell originally wanted it to be from the start? I honestly have no idea. Will people want to put the money down for those C3 Shoguns? It really will depend on the ill clan and on any factions of the clan that would need 85-ton assault mechs with jump capability. All I really know is that I still hate working on those damn things because even the newer Seafox models still use those old linkage and a lot of the tech that still makes no sense to most regular tech. If we get clear plans for them and they start using standardized parts for them in the future, maybe I'll enjoy the darn thing a little bit more. So I hope you have a very nice rest of your day. I thank you for listening to me for so long, and I will see you guys later. Bye-bye.